Time for another week of Every Day We're Covering. Chris Parks, SJ Munoz with you here once again to talk football and wagering and all kinds of other stuff going on in the sports world. It was, of course, divisional round of the NFL playoffs here this past weekend. We'll be recapping our picks, so we'll move on, of course, and then look at the championships. We'll touch on a few college football topics here this week as well with some of the news that's been out. But, SJ... all I got to say is, how about them Chiefs? I don't
there you
know.
go. Pulled one out there. No, thanks. Give the assist to Bass. But the way it was going, look at that money was on the side. But all in all, a way better weekend than last weekend as far as competitive games and keeping our interest. So that was good to see. But yeah, we'll get into the details. But I think setting up for some pretty big matchups here, and I don't think there'll be any any weather related, because we've seen that happen pretty often the last few weeks. I think we're maybe the football can just stand alone this week. We don't have to worry about any shoveling or any frostbite or frozen mustaches, nothing like that this week.
Yeah, we'll hopefully have some normalcy to how the field is and all that good stuff. And we should have a couple pretty good games, too, I think, coming up here in these championship contests, too. But we'll get into that, obviously. As we get rolling here, we always talk about what we like to toss back as well as we enjoy the program. SJ, what do you got pouring over there today?
Typically, I'm not. I've said it. We've talked before off mic, just in our everyday lives, and I'm pretty sure I've said on the show, I'm not typically an IPA guy, but for some reason this weekend I was feeling kind of funky, so I grabbed some Space Camper IPAs Boulevard. That's one that I do like. And honestly, besides the I'd say like the strength of it, it doesn't drink like most IPAs. That bitterness isn't quite there, so that's one that I do enjoy. So I don't know. I just guess I felt in the mood, and maybe that brought some luck to your Chief boys there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't mind that at all. Yeah, I'm with you. And it actually is one style of beer, I think, that wide-ranging category, really. I mean, you can get everything from something that tastes like you're putting a damn forest in your mouth to something that's actually pretty, light and refreshing. So it is a pretty wide range. Some of them, are much different than others. And, of course, all of it's down to personal preference at the end of the day. But, that is a good one. I've had that one before. I was very happy to see this. This pleased me today as I walked into the store to try to find something different here for the show. And this is always a time of year that I get a little bit excited for, because usually during this time of the year, the weather doesn't give you a whole heck of a lot to be feeling good about. So you're looking for some kind of uplifting thing. And the fine folks at Sam Adams always do that for me, because this is a time of year that Cold Snap is back on the shelves. This is one of my seasonal favorites. It's kind of a white ale that has a little bit of that kind of almost just a touch of that Belgian wheat type of feel, but it's still just kind of a interesting citrusy, spicy type of beer. It's different, that's for sure, and I think it's kind of stands out in my opinion in some of the seasonal ones, and especially in their lineup. So I was happy to do that and happy to pour back a couple of these. That's for sure.
Yeah, you might think they got a little commercialized, but honestly, Sam Adams, you can't really go wrong with much of their stuff. I know they're not really maybe the craft brewer drinker or craft beer drinkers craft brew these days, but I do think they still put out a quality product, even though maybe they've gotten it's kind of like one of those things that get too popular and then you're not good anymore. Even though I do think they still make some good beer, but there's that whole snob scene within the craft brewer industry. So that's kind of what I'm pointing to. But I honestly almost grabbed my. Funny story, I was about 2 seconds away from grabbing Sam Adams, so we were thinking alike, I guess, that way as well.
Nice, yeah. Yeah, I agree. Their stuff up and down their lineup is really pretty good. They don't really make a bad beer, I would say, so to speak, every one that I've ever had. Yeah, I like some of them a lot more than others, but as far as quality is concerned, they seem to do a pretty darn good job of executing that. So that's what we're drinking on here. Hopefully you're maybe listening and enjoying a beverage along with us. If you ever have any recommendations, certainly shoot them our way. We'll probably be willing to go give them a try. And if you want to send them to us, even better. Then I can just try it, and no questions asked. If it shows up on my doorstep, but we would have some fun with that. We'll get in here to the games last week. Before we dive into the NFL, though, I wanted to get a couple of quick college football topics out of the way here, because obviously the NFL is really the focus right now. But there has been some movement on some different things in the college football world, as far as some coaching changes and then some big names into the transfer portal as well. One of those things that we talked about last week, obviously, was Nick Saban leaving Alabama, and then Caleb DeBoer moving over and taking over his spot at Alabama from Washington. Well, Washington didn't take long to find his replacement, and I think they got a pretty good name. They went out and got Jed Fish, who had just really turned around that Arizona program in no time. They had a great season, so they snagged him. He also got a couple of players to come along with him, including their standout running back and Jonah Coleman. So he has followed him along there. And that wasn't the end of the shakeup for Arizona, because I just saw a story today that their AD is out as well. Dave Hakey is out, and they're bringing in, I guess they've got a guy. I don't remember his name now off the top of my head, but he was the softball coach there. He's like the winningest softball coach in NCAA history. He's taking over as the interim AD right now, and it looks like probably will be the guy that is getting the permanent job from here on out. But Arizona then turned around and hired
Brent Brennan.
They're from San Jose State. So they've got him to come in. And he did a nice job immediately of getting Noah Fafita and then McMillan, the wide receiver, to say that they're coming back to help that Arizona team. So that's good for them. They're two really good players and young players too. So, but a wild mix-up. That's a lot going on for his school. If you're an Arizona fan, it's been a wild couple of weeks.
Yeah, kind of living on the edge of your seat, even more so than in the past, just with how with the transferring. Of course, coaches have always jumped, from job to job. That's nothing new. And I guess maybe just because we're so used to it, you never really raised an eyebrow at it and just said, "Oh, that's just how the business goes. You get your opportunity, you take it," which I think is true. When you're getting, even though they were conference mates, up until I guess would be this coming year, that's still a pretty big jump from a program like that to a team that was just in the playoff. Of course, it'd be kind of hard to turn that job down. But now you just add in that the players can kind of. Which I think in most cases it's rightfully so that if a coach leaves, they should have that opportunity too. But it just, keeping track of it is difficult in itself. And then just, I don't know, just because it worked in one place doesn't mean it always works in another. But you got to stick with what you know. And time is key, like there's only so much time to get a class in there and get going. A lot of teams starting their winter conditioning this week, and spring ball will be here before you know it. So there's not a lot of time to mess around. And if you can get somebody that's a proven, high-level D1 athlete to commit to you, I guess you gotta take them wherever you can get them from.
Yeah, it certainly, like you said, probably is obviously the right thing for those kids to be able to do what they want once that change is made from a coach that they committed to. But yeah, as a fan, I guess me personally, you're never going to keep track of all this stuff. So I'm just going to kind of do one of those things like, well, we'll wait until it gets kind of, midsummer, late summer, then I'll start studying, the roster a little bit of the teams that I follow and look at some of the big names to try to understand who's where now, because that's all you really can do, because there's going to be so much that changes between now and then. You've even had some kids in the last couple of years all the way up close to fall camp, make a decision that they're going somewhere else. So, I would say as a fan, maybe just hang on and wait a little while if you don't want to get caught up in all that, and we'll figure it on out down the road. That's just the way it's going to be.
And there's even, always been kind of like the, wait till they sign type of thing. But with the transfers, and especially a graduate type transfer, until they're in class that first day, nothing's really official. So anybody could swoop in and change their mind, or they've decided it's not a good fit at the last minute. So I'm with you. Wait until they're, suited up in practice in class, or even till the, preseason camp begins to start really getting excited, or even paying attention to where anybody's playing at that point.
Yeah. Maybe you have to wait till that collective press release comes out. You don't know what's going on anymore. One thing too to mention in that whole scenario, the fallout there. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name because I know I'm going to butcher it as always. But Ken, the guy at Navy forever, he's taken over the San Jose State job, so he's finally taken another job somewhere else. I know he's been a name that's been looked at a lot of times, and finally maybe found a spot that he thinks fits well for him, so he's moving as well. One other kind of note, or a couple other notes, I guess, on the transfer portal front. One that's notable here in our area, or our region of the country. Caden Proctor, who was a big recruit out of the state of Iowa when he made his decision last year to go to Alabama, and pretty much started every game for Alabama this year, most of them. I think there was only a couple he didn't start. So obviously it was a big part of their program there for a little bit. But he entered the portal after Saban left, and it sounds like now he is going back to the University of Iowa, where he originally had committed before he changed and said he was going to Bama. So it's kind of one of those microcosm situations where it's a little bit interesting. The motivation factor certainly plays into this a little bit, because he pretty much outright said before that he was going to Alabama because he's going to get paid better. That's basically what came out of it, the first time around. And now obviously that situation must have changed, because he feels like it's okay to leave and go to Iowa City now. Very interesting.
Well, either they came up with some money or something else happened, down there. But he seems like the type of player that you don't necessarily want to stick a mic in front of too often. Going with the admission that you mentioned, and then also there was another interview floating about where he kind of mentioned that perhaps Iowa contacted him while he was still, playing for Alabama, which obviously doesn't look good. Of course, we all know, unless you're going to kind of, be naive or just, not be aware to like what's actually going on, that's how it kind of plays out. Like you know where you're going before you go, even if you're under the guise that you got the top 3 schools or top 5 schools. In most cases, you already have made that decision before you even leave.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the other part of this too, because everybody feels like, and you would think that sounds kind of like disingenuous and a kind of a sneaky type of thing, backroom deal kind of thing to do to, tamper with somebody while a season is going on. But yeah, like you said, we all know that is happening. I don't know if there's an answer to change that at all, if you create certain windows where kids can be contacted or what that may be. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it in a real world landscape, obviously if any of us are making a decision on a career change or moving a job, before we say we're leaving to the other one, we probably got a pretty good idea that we're going somewhere else. That's how it works, and that's exactly what these kids are doing too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't say that as a bad thing. That's probably information you don't want just to volunteer out there and say, let everybody know kind of how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my thing. It's like, just don't let this kid talk. Obviously, good player. That's not in debate here. It's just maybe keep him away from the press conferences as much as you can.
Yeah. Well, and it's pretty interesting that it's tied to a university where Bruce Pearl was once ostracized because he was kind of pointing out the fact that tampering was going on with other schools at one point in time. So, yeah, very interesting. It's just kind of that we're working our way through how all this stuff works, and it's going to be wild. Certainly for a while, and it may not ever change, and we just, maybe aren't going to know all the details all the time. So that was one noted player. I did see also as well that Tulia Tagovailoa has decided he's going to the NFL and not coming back to Maryland. So that was kind of a big name of a guy that a lot of people were looking at as far as, breaking some records and stuff because of the numbers that he had put up over time at Maryland if he did come back. And then the other big story has been Ohio State. They brought in...
They're getting everybody. I don't know how they're going to play everybody, but they got everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, they got a new quarterback from Kansas State. They got a new running back from Ole Miss. They got a bunch of guys from Alabama. I don't know what position they play. They're just reeling them in. But, yeah, I did see that it was pretty funny the other day. I don't know if you saw Lane Kiffin's little jab at them. He's, kind of saying, Ohio State's getting the best roster money can buy right now. They're loading them up. And, which, of course, he's doing the same thing. But it is pretty funny sometimes when you get those little jabs put in there when a team is making an obvious concerted effort just to overhaul their whole roster to do that because they have fallen short of what they believe their standards are. So, yeah, you get some goofy stuff happening out there. So that was kind of some of the college football news that we have out there that's real prominent. There have been some other changes, some other schools too, but we're not going to go through every single one of them on down the list.
We ain't got that kind of time. We're on a limited schedule here, yeah. We have a life to live. Otherwise, we might do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a whole dedicated different show, maybe. So let's go into the NFL here, and we'll get into the divisional round of games. As SJ alluded to earlier, I thought a much better weekend of football overall. We saw some pretty good competition. The first game that we'll touch on turned out to be a little bit of a blowout by the time it was over. The Ravens really clamped down in the second half and took care of business against the Texans. 34-10 was the final. We were looking for the over 43.5 there. Had to sweat it a little bit. They needed points late in the game to make sure it happened, but we got there, getting to the 44, so just over that 43.5, and got some money there. And yeah, the Ravens looked pretty good in the second half doing it.
Yeah, like you said, just competitive, and we said that could be the case, which is part of the reason I kind of stayed away from that spread, which they ended up covering. But for much of the game, it looked like that might not have been the case. And then also late, even there was a time here or there where it was like, oh, they might put something together here, but Baltimore wasn't to be denied, and kind of easily. But of all the games, that was probably, I guess, the least interesting as far as who was going to win. But for other reasons, we were definitely interested to the very end.
Yeah,
they're close to it. Yeah,
needed those points. We got there. The next game up on the list was the 49ers taking on the Green Bay Packers, and well, this is one where we were wrong because we both had the Niners covering a 9.5 that they were giving. They needed a late drive, kind of a rough game overall, really, for them offensively, but they put it together when they needed to get points and win it. 24-21 the final. They beat Green Bay and move on to the NFC Championship. Yeah, interesting game. I mean, you give Green Bay credit again. I really didn't expect them to be right in it from the get-go like they were, and they kind of put the pressure on the Niners early to respond, and yeah, they made it a fun game.
Of the 4 picks we made, I mean, to me, this was the most disappointing. I thought they would come out a little stronger, but we did kind of discuss maybe in some of the other contests, but this one should have been included, of the team that has the week off. Coming into the game, a lot of times they're just not as crisp as someone that's played a week before, because of course you want to earn the bye and get the highest seed possible, but there's something to be said for inactivity compared to someone that's been out there for 4 quarters a week before. I know the injury thing probably maybe helped him heal up, but they might be dealing with another injury now, and with Deebo Samuel, who knows what's going to happen with him this week. So this was actually the only disappointing. I know like the record overall wasn't that good as far as for my picks, but this was the only one I was really disappointed in. The other ones is a 50-50 deal. This one I was pretty confident that San Francisco would win pretty easily. I know wasn't great, rain off and on, but they didn't look anything like they had the past few weeks. So that's maybe something to keep in mind as we look at next week.
Yeah, I mean, I think the weather certainly did have a little bit of an impact in that game because Brock Purdy was obviously bothered by it. They mentioned he had the glove on first. He took it off. You could tell he was kind of wiping his hand all the time. And, yeah, it was in his head, if nothing else. So it definitely made it a struggle. You kind of thought that they were going to pull something together when they needed to, and they ultimately did. And I guess that's what, a team that wants to win a championship has to do sometimes. You overcome that game where you had a little bit of a stinker and still pulled it off to get in the championship game.
Well, maybe it's because a lot of them are young players, or we just don't know the name. They're not household names, but just besides maybe Love, like Green Bay just doesn't look good by the eyeball test. When you watch them play, it's not like, oh my God, they don't wow you. But here they are, receivers running open again. I mean, I guess is the known commodity, and he's put it out there on tape. He's the top quality running back across the whole league. But other than that, it's a lot of. I mean, they've done their work in the draft and really made some good picks, and maybe that's part of it. Why people keep underestimating them, and they did even through that game. But I think next year will probably be a different story, and they're going to be right there at Detroit as the favorite in that division, and of course in the NFC as a whole.
Yeah, certainly a team that improved as the season went along a lot, and you could see that week by week and even into the playoffs. Give a little credit, too, I have to say, to Matt LaFleur, because they obviously drew up some great stuff those last couple of weeks, because I don't remember a team having that many wide-open wide receivers.
Like I said last time, it's when the defender's not even in the screen, it's not a good thing. Well, it's a good thing for the offense, bad thing for the defense. So, yeah, that happened again quite often, too, and it's not not the burning, it's not 4.2 speed of getting open all the time. It's tight ends and fullbacks and that kind of thing too. So that's all about scheme and game plan, preparing for the opponent.
Yeah, did a good job with it. Next game up on the slate to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Detroit Lions. And we kind of went split on this one. SJ was looking for the under, and that did not obviously come about because the team started racking up points in that game. 31-23 was the final, Detroit getting the victory. I took the Lions laying the 6.5 and was able to cover that, and not super comfortably, obviously, but they got it done. They did have a couple score lead before that late score by Tampa Bay to get it back a little closer again. But, a good hard-fought game. Both teams kind of had some of their moments, but you kind of felt throughout, though, that Detroit had a pretty good grasp on what was going on and was playing well enough that they were going to win the game.
Yeah, it seemed to be, mostly in control, and I don't know what happened there. All of a sudden, it was just like freaking Tecmo Bowl there. Because, it was looking good. It was about, 17-14, just the kind of that lower scoring, which I thought was going to happen, and all of a sudden, then no one could play defense or they found something. But, Detroit looked about as good as you thought they were going to look. I just thought it would be a little bit closer and maybe a little more ugly, but didn't play out that way. But I don't know, man. It's going to be hard to seems like I know I mentioned it a few weeks ago how I was like, didn't want to say destiny, but every week they get a little bit closer to that. Just the way they're looking is it's going to be real hard even with, the matchup they have this week. Detroit is a tough team to pick against right now.
Yeah, they got a lot going for them, that is for sure. Then we moved on to the last one and maybe the most wild game of the weekend, the Kansas City Chiefs on the road against the Buffalo Bills. 27-24, the final. Kansas City wins it. Of course, part of that story was a late missed short field goal there by the Buffalo Bills, wide right, something their fans obviously are very used to in their history, unfortunately. But I did not think that was the story of the game either. There certainly were a lot of opportunities for both teams to do more than they did. I guess the thing that I was most impressed with on both sides was, one, the fact that Kansas City's offense was so efficient early in the game, scored on their first, I think it was 6 possessions aside from the halftime, mark where they only ran a couple plays on that drive anyways, but at least got points up every time they went down the field. Now, Buffalo was doing kind of much the same early in the game too. I was really impressed by the way they ran the ball, not something that they really are kind of known for, but they were running it right up the gut a lot, and obviously Josh Allen used his legs a lot to help out the cause too, but both teams had pretty good game plans on that side of the ball, and ultimately it came down to a couple of flip of the coin type of plays, and Kansas City lucks out and gets the late miss on the field goal to make it hang on.
That's about what you'd expect with especially these two teams in the history of just the series. In the regular season and the playoffs, it's never an easy win either way. I guess it's easy to remember those and point out too, but there was a lot of costly mistakes too. Even the Chiefs, they had that chance to really kind of go ahead, and then of course the fumble through the end zone. I believe at that point, if they score, they go up double digits, at least 10, maybe 14. Can't remember the exact score. But then Bills were, dropping passes left and right, and I'm not talking about a one-handed on the sideline, tap your toes down. These were, right in the bread basket, type of things, and Diggs of all people. Of course, there wasn't just him, but you expect someone of that caliber to make the play, but that's how it goes, and that's kind of part of the game. And just I guess you gotta live with the big play, die by the big play at the same time. But overall, it was a really good competitive game and interesting to the end, and that's kind of all you can ask for. And heading in, of course, I picked the wrong team, but felt there was a coin flip game either way. It wasn't much separation there at all.
Yeah, you went with the Bills. They were laying the 2.5 at the time that we had it, and then I went for the overs in that game, over 45.5 when we got there. So 51 was the final total. So took care of business on that front. So overall, our picks not a terrible weekend. If folks were following along, so we were appreciative of that. The other thing that I thought would have been a really interesting. Obviously, probably would have been the storyline had it happened. You mentioned that play. Just before that, the decision by Buffalo to fake the punt,
that was just
that would. The Chiefs scored. That's the story of the game.
When that happened, there was a lot of time left, but I was just kind of thinking like that's the type of things that loses you a game, and we forget about it too because the fumble happens 3 plays later maybe. So then you just kind of like don't really stick on that one. But that was honestly there's not really any explanation for it other than you just felt. I mean, they felt they probably couldn't stop him, but that's not the time to do a fake. It was if you're at maybe at their 40 or even midfield, but I believe it was like around 35-yard
Yeah,
line
yeah.
or somewhere around there. Like it wasn't, and it wasn't anything like because it was weird because he came in motion and set, and then he moved to the other side and then comes back again to get the snap. So if you're gonna do something like that, I think it's more of a a silent count, something quick. Like you're not I guess they said the Chiefs had 10 players on the field. I
Yeah.
didn't stop and count it. But if you're gonna if that's the case, that's fine. But do it quick. Don't give them a chance to realize that you're trying to look for a fake. So
Hmm.
yeah, that was one of the most boneheaded decisions we've seen in recent at least in a big game in the NFL in the last few years that I can remember.
Yeah, and obviously, a lot of arguments go into that too. On a lot of people will say, well, if you're going to do that, let Josh Allen have the chance to get the first down, and I get that too. I mean, but there is sometimes something to the surprise element if you can draw it up the right way. But yeah, like you said, maybe that wasn't the best execution to go about it.
And if Allen's out there, you're obviously going for it, so that wouldn't work. I just think the timing of it and the actual play design were both awful, and it just I don't know. I didn't think it was a time where they really were that much trouble. That was actually a point in the game where they had figured something out on defense and had done a decent job of stopping the
Yeah.
Chiefs there towards the end.
Hmm.
So it didn't seem like you needed a spark on the defensive side. It was more about finding something in your offense, and maybe they couldn't figure it out because the KC did make an adjustment, did something, whatever they did worked against the run. I just seemed like they were blitzing a lot more and just bringing more guys in the box. But
Yeah.
they were able to stop the run in the second half, and I guess they just couldn't figure anything else out. And they thought a fake punt with somebody that doesn't usually carry the ball was your best your best option there. It doesn't seem like what would be an elite NFL coach would call.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, and I got all. I guess I almost probably would get if I was a big talking head, I'd get backlash or even suggesting this. But uh, you have to cross your mind. Like, are you trying to make a story out of this by giving it to Hamlin? Like,
I did hear that brought up, and I guess
odd.
only McDermott knows that answer.
It's
But
odd.
yeah, I've heard that sentiment floated about. So who knows?
Yeah, weird stuff.
I mean, it wouldn't be with the kind of the storylines and the off the field kind of blurring to the on field with some shirtless people and other teeny boppers there. It wouldn't anything's possible these days.
That's true. True. Hats off to Jason Kelce though for having a good time. I mean, just go have
Why
a good
not?
time.
I mean, yeah, you might as well. I mean,
What the hell? That was some good stuff. The other thing I thought, and I don't want to harp on this game forever, but this is kind of a general thing too in football, and we've talked about this in other games recent weeks. Fan interaction. Obviously, we all know that Buffalo fans have a reputation for being wild and crazy guys. They're going to go have a party before the game, and they're going to be rambunctious in the stadium, and you get that. But there's got to be a point at some point where you say, enough is enough with the throwing of the snowballs and it got out of hand. And it seemed like every play, I don't know what it was between maybe it's just the teams, the bad blood, but like every play almost, there was like a scuffle where guys were pushing each other. I mean, can we just play football at some point? It just seems ridiculous when it goes to that far.
yeah, I think at some point you're gonna kind of go over the edge with living up to your reputation there. Like, I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's something that when you're like, guess not on one side or the other, harder to maybe, feel invested into that. But I do think there's some, as a whole, just the NFL fan is kind of like above and beyond in most cases to me. We even mentioned last week the popcorn thrower
Yeah.
at the Eagles coach, and just it's almost like par for the course these days, which doesn't make it right. But people just kind of they don't just laugh at it and take it as a joke. But I mean, something's going to happen eventually, and it's not going to be a good thing. And then you're going to have to deal with that, and then everyone will throw their arms up and act shocked and be like, how did this happen? I mean, we've had literal deaths in parking lots at NFL stadiums, and not just randomly, like almost not I don't want to say regular basis, but
Enough.
at least a few times a year, and that's that. I mean, that's freaking uncalled for. I mean, but it happens, and it's just like I don't know if it just gets swept under.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Just it's weird that there's not more attention put on that and the other things that we worry about that we shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, you got to do as much as you can, I think, to make it reasonable on camera because that's what people are getting influenced by. And then you think that it's crazy when it happens, beyond that outside of the stadium or when the camera's not on. So, yeah, I think there needs to be something said. And not just the fans, I'm saying the players too, because it gets out of control when they're doing that stuff every single play throughout the game.
Well, I mean, I think I've seen more videos of fans, player fan interactions on the sidelines, just back and forth talking trash. Than, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess after a while you get tired of people saying crap to you, but at the same time, it's like, where's this gonna go? Nothing good, Like it's easy to say that when no one's saying anything to me, of course. But it seems like that type of stuff just is like it's all someone's just trying to catch you or get some money off you, and to fall into that. You just got to be a little bit smarter than that. I understand they can't control all the fans. Obviously, way outnumber fans compared to, and the security they have isn't, people say, oh, it's security. Dude, it's literally volunteer people.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's people, I know people around at Arrowhead that have done it that are doing it to like raise money for their kids' softball teams and things of that sort. Like they're literally just helping out to help out. It's not anybody that's trained. Of course, they have a few people, I'm sure, retired cops or, some law enforcement off duty, but for the most part, it's just literally like old dudes that want to, hang out at the stadium or like, parents trying to raise money for their freaking Girl Scout cookies, that type of thing. So it's not like anybody there's. Why would you, who's going to get in the middle of some freaking crazy drunks trying to kill each other?
No.
You're not getting paid for that.
No, exactly. I agree. I did see too, and I didn't love it either. Some people are upset with the Chiefs players, kind of waving to the crowd there at the end of the game too. But I think that was all kind of part of that whole deal with the snowball thing going on all game, and it was all of that just needed to go away. But we'll see if things change here down the road. Who knows?
I'll say no, but
I agree.
Not to be negative, but
I wish.
Yeah.
So that sets us up here for a couple of championship games coming up now here this weekend. And the first one will be the AFC Championship. And that's going to be a 2 o'clock kickoff on Sunday. That one's on CBS. Chiefs at the Ravens. And the Ravens are a 3.5-point favorite as I see it right now. And the number at 44.5. Like I alluded to earlier, I think both these games are going to be great games, just kind of the way the teams match up. But SJ, what are you thinking here on this one?
Well, what I was really looking for is how many times that we can, if there was an over/under on Romo saying, "I don't know, Jim," but I couldn't find that on the board, so I had to keep moving on. Oh God, I mean, I do remember though in his first season on the mic, everyone was all on his nuts trying to say how good he was, and I for the life of me, I couldn't understand that. I was, banging my head on the wall trying to figure out what everybody else was hearing and seeing that I didn't see. I'm glad that, more people have come around. Not to make this a, Romo bashing hour, but that dude is just, he's insufferable, honestly. It's hard to take, and I mean, he's pretty much embedded with your team, so I can imagine how you feel about that.
Yeah. Well, and I think he's regressed. Like, maybe if you didn't think he was good or bad to begin with, he's definitely gotten worse. I know that because he's just kind of gotten more and more goofy about everything. It's not all about the football anymore. The thing that people loved when he first started was he'd like point out, look at this formation. Oh, I think they might run this play, and then they'd run it. That was kind of his thing. He'd call a play.
There's a little bit of substance to it. Now it's almost like a caricature.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
bunch of jokes.
He's almost just playing up to something. But all right, well, we'll get off that for now. But I mean, you think of these teams and offense is obviously the first thing that comes to your mind, like historically. But looking at the stats here, actually the Chiefs this season are second in total defense. I'm sure you're aware. That doesn't surprise you being a fan. But the Ravens are even sixth, so they've made their name, more of a defensive team in the past. So that's maybe not as surprising. But on the flip side, Baltimore is number 6 in total offense, and Chiefs are sitting at 9th. So maybe like a little bit of a reversal there of what you come to think about when you think of these two teams. Baltimore is any player that you think of like the Baltimore greats. First 4 or 5 are guaranteed are going to be defensive players.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But this, now it's all about offense. I mean, for the most part, of course, they still have a solid defense. But I say that to say that the QBs, though, are still, It all goes through there. Obviously, two of the best in the league, if not the best quarterbacks. So that's kind of going to be the whatever stirs the drink for whoever has more success on this day. Speaking of quarterbacks, though, I think it is interesting to note that Baltimore led the league in sacks with 60. Chiefs not far behind though, 57 sacks of their own. So whoever gets more pressure on the quarterback, obviously it's going to play into your hands. Ravens much better in takeaways though, second in the league with plus 12 turnover ratio. Chiefs are minus 11 in turnovers. Not where you want to be there. Um, Talking about all the defensive turnovers, all that type of thing. It's so hard to pick a winner from where I see it. It's kind of almost like that Bills Chiefs matchup too, and when someone hasn't done it before, it makes it even harder to pick them. Like my initial lean would be Baltimore just because of the course of the season, what they've done. But they've kind of yet to get over. I know they've been to the Super Bowl, but with this iteration, if you
Mhm.
will.
Yeah.
Sorry, not to use a big word on a Monday, but with this iteration,
The Lamar
of the
Jackson era,
Ravens,
yeah.
yeah. They have yet to do that. So, with all that said, I could see this is not a cop out, but I could literally see either team winning. So, I'm gonna go ahead and just go hit that over. I do think I know they got good defenses, but it's really hard to hold this explosive of quarterbacks to less than 25 points each, and even they 24, 24-21, you got it, you're there, and that's not even a high scoring game. So I feel pretty confident with that over.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth a little bit on this because my thought heading into last weekend was whoever wins that Kansas City Buffalo game, I think is going to actually move on and get to the Super Bowl. But I'm with you that this is going to be a really close game. So even that 3.5, might be enough. It
Yeah,
might be a point that wins it.
exactly.
So
This remember last week when we said who wins by 1 point. This could be that game. Like
yeah,
literally, like I could see it.
yeah, yeah. So I think I'm going to go with you. I like the over here too. I just think there's too much explosiveness on that offensive side. Even though both teams, yeah, like you said, have shown that they can play good defense, they also have both kind of shown moments where they have a little bit of breakdown here and there. They don't play solid defense and shut you out type of teams. Yeah, they're going to slow you down, but you're not going to keep these two quarterbacks down.
It's
Mahomes,
impossible. I
yeah,
mean, you think you get play, 3 or 4 good series in a row, and when the quarterback gets loose for a 50-yard run the next series, and and then next 2 plays later you're in the end zone. So
yeah.
either side could do that.
Yeah, and certainly, I don't know if maybe it was part of what Spagnuolo was kind of like aiming for last week was maybe to kind of keep more of the top on the lid because there was so much of that underneath and Allen being able to run. But if you let Lamar Jackson do that, he's going to get a few more yards than Josh Allen is because he's a little bit quicker. So that could be a problem. I do think that that'll be an issue. But if they can, at least just, make a couple of those plays not happen here and there, then the Chiefs, I think, still pull out the close win. But, I'm going to go with the over with you there, getting over that 44.5. I agree. So we move on to the NFC Championship game. The nightcap at 5:30 and Fox, the Detroit Lions at the San Francisco 49ers. Right now I see the Niners as a 7-point favorite. 50.5 is the number on that one. And I guess I'll start this one off. When I first saw the number, when I looked at it today, I was almost kind of taken back a little bit because just what you said earlier, this Lions team is finding ways to win and play well. And the way that the 49ers kind of struggled last week, I know maybe it's a 1-week hiccup kind of thing, and they might come out and guns a-blazing this week. But even if so, I think the Lions are good enough offensively as well to keep pace. So I just don't see the Niners covering that 7. I think it's going to be closer than that. They may win, but I'm going to take the Lions because I just think that number is a little bit too high.
Yeah, being early in the week and how I mentioned Samuel, kind of uncertainty with him. I really did want to pick the Lions outright. They've kind of kept to form here with their defense. At least they're still just giving up about 23 points a game, which and I know that it's two postseason games compared to just one for the Niners. But the Lions have kind of been who they are these first 2 games in the regular season and carrying over to the postseason. So that's a good sign. One thing to watch too, I think, is just we talked about the dumbass attack with the fake punt for Buffalo. Campbell's he loves to gamble, so that we got a
Hmm.
good little rhyme there. So watch that. And I know they were 2 for 2 on fourth down, I think, last week or no, this last game. So that's something to watch. And he'll go for it. Deep in his own end, or even instead of settling for the field goal, he went for the touchdown. Last week he saw him go for the touchdown. So he's not afraid to do that. So I think that's something to watch. If they hit a couple of those big fourth down plays, that can really obviously a momentum changing type of play. So that's something to watch. I don't want to be too much of a prisoner of the moment either, and that's kind of why I don't want to pick them to win outright.
Hmm.
San Francisco, like I said, I was just really, really unimpressed.
Hmm.
But it was one game, and the weather was not ideal, so I have to remember that as well. And Green Bay was on a hell of a run here at the end of the season, so those kind of all factored into me just not picking the Lions. However, if we get to Wednesday I guess it'd probably be like Thursday or Friday if that he would get ruled out. Maybe even not too right before kickoff. Uh, I would definitely if no Samuel, I'm taking the Lions outright. But since he's still questionable, I guess is probably listing him. I'm with you there, and I'll take that +7. That's a healthy margin where they could still easily lose by a field goal, and you're still sitting pretty good there.
Yeah, that's a pretty high number, especially in a championship game. You would think so. Yeah, it's going to be two really good games. The teams certainly, I think, both games match up pretty well. They both kind of do some good things, I think, on both sides of the ball. It's not like either team has a huge, like, glaring weakness somewhere that's going to be exploited. So, could be some fun football. And I know one thing that we've been kind of hankering for here is to just see some games maybe just decided on the field by some big plays or
Oh,
some guys making plays because, sometimes it's come down to what's happened with the officials or, waiting on a ruling.
yeah, I guess we just I've mentioned in passing. I guess good way to term it is just I'm not kind of a all in NFL guy, which seems rather strange with the obsession with that league and just how people are just all about it. Here's the first thing is kickoff Bud Light commercial, first down Bud Light commercial, second down Bud Light commercial, third down Bud Light commercial, punt Bud Light. That's the first off, and you ever go to a game and that's it's all like you know it's just just gouging you
Yeah, very
every which way
commercialized. Yeah.
possible. It's just like, all right, I wanted to enjoy myself, but that's not possible. So that's like number one, but probably second, and I guess more relatable to what being a sports fan or just what we're talking about here is just the like you said the proliferation is another big word for you of
You're on
just
a roll today.
it's always yeah. I think I had a dictionary.com did an update on the app or something. I don't know what happened. But just it's every time there's a big play, whether it doesn't matter the teams. Of course, we saw it really big time last weekend. But anytime there's a big play or any type of game changing type of situation, the first thing that we look for is the laundry, or we call for it. I guess I should say
Yeah.
is. Everyone's like, "Oh, is that a penalty? What's the?" And a lot of times, it's. I mean, I know it happens in other levels too. I've seen it cultural, but it seems more often than not, the play will be over for a second, maybe two, and then the flag comes
Yeah.
flying. It's not even a discussion where it's maybe intentional. Granted, I get that because you got to talk amongst who saw what. But I mean, it's a defensive holding, a pass interference. A couple I can remember yesterday. It's like that flag should be out before the play is even halfway over.
Hmm.
I know on the one which I think I think it was a good call when the Chiefs receiver is coming across the middle and he
Oh,
got
yeah,
bumped
yeah.
just a little past 5 yards, but the flag didn't come out until at least a second after the play, and that's where the issues come, I think. And it almost there was that joke about the script, and I'm not the rig type of guy, but it does lend credence to conspiracy of that sort where it's just like what are you doing, like you got, I'm sure the rule book is 10, 15, 20 pounds. Can you just adhere to that, and then we'll all be good? So that's just another kind of, I know I'm an NBA guy, and a lot of people don't like the NBA, and a lot of it was because people are always looking for calls and flopping and that type of
Hmm.
thing. To me, this is the same damn crap that you don't like in another league, but you're just seeing it in I guess through a different prism or a different window, and you justify it however you have to justify it.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. It was interesting on that particular play. I was watching and you kind of got the feeling that the players all were maybe thinking something was going on. And I said to my cousin, Oh, I just saw the yellow like whiz across the screen after they were standing around for a minute. Like, what the hell is this? Yeah,
Well, that's the thing. Instead of like celebrating, like even just watching the game, you're like, let's say, like maybe if I don't have really have a team, but I'm like, rooting for the bet or whatever we got going on, and before you even look, you're like, okay, was there a foul? Was there a penalty? Where's the flag? Where's the flag? Like, okay, now we can celebrate, and that kind of takes out the in the moment of it, and you're just kind of basically like I don't know. It's just a weird way to watch a game to me. Like I'd rather just be like, it's either it's a penalty or it's not. It just seems a little bit too much discussion. A little bit the timing of it doesn't seem to add up. And I'm gonna say like here and there, it's getting it's almost 50-50. Yeah, it's not even just if it happens once a game, whatever. And I don't think I like replay. I think it's good because it gets a lot of things right. But I do think some of the officials and they just lean too heavily on that, thinking it's going to correct whatever mistake they make.
Yeah. It takes the edge off a little bit. I agree with that for sure. And of course the other thing too, this is a whole other, discussion and deep dive, but it does lead, when those actions are happening, you mentioned kind of the conspiracy theory, people have a little bit of room to fit their nose in there. Well, it also leans back to what we're talking about on this show all the time. The proliferation of sports betting and gambling. Obviously, I'm sure they're watching these officials and they're probably got a good lid on them, what they're doing in their personal lives. But certainly you would think there might be some more areas where people are trying to influence that a little bit. And it makes you question things more when that's certainly the case, because there's sometimes a lot more on the line anymore than just, the football game, because that's, what we've had happen. And that was happening before, but now it's just much more on a bigger scale.
Well, it's legal in a lot more places too, so it's a lot more money on the line just across the board. Even if someone's betting a small amount, $5, $10, $15, $20 times however many million, that adds up real quick.
Yeah. So certainly, the NFL a powerful beast. We've talked about that in a number of ways, and it's hopefully some of that maybe gets reverted the other direction at some point. But it's tough right now sometimes to watch in certain moments. But certainly, hopefully, these games have the potential to maybe just have some good plays out there and see some good football. So we'll hope for that.
Well, it'd be nice. We'll be rooting on the same side here too. So we'll both know where our heads are at with these with the picks we made tonight. So that's
true.
A good thing.
Yeah. Hopefully everybody's on board with us. So hopefully we've had some fun picking along during this part of the season now, as we transition a little bit more focused on the NFL as that starts to come to a close here. But we appreciate you supporting us in whatever way that may be. If you want to share the podcast on other platforms, it's available out there pretty much anywhere to find. We'll of course share it on our socials. If you're a Twitter user, at SJM Bets, and then at Cherokee CP are the two handles. And as SJ has mentioned to you in the past, he'll sometimes throw out some other stuff here for you. I know you had a nice little promo there for the UFC card this past weekend for folks to see. So we'll kind of get you involved in that way. We put up the graphics there on what we do picks on here on the show too. So follow us on those mediums, and you can interact with us there, interact with the polls. Of course, give us a great review. We'd appreciate that, and we'll take any of your suggestions on topics or beverages even better. So let's do that as we move on down the road. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next week for some more covers.